Joining me right now is Democratic Congressman Mike Quigley of Illinois. He's a member of the Intelligence Committee. It's good to see you, Congressman. Thanks for being here. Do you think the president did anything to move the needle in terms of convincing enough Republicans to vote for this elections bill that he's pushing?
I don't think so. I think what he did was effectively rev up his base, and set the agenda to challenge the election results in the midterms here. I think he's been told by enough people that he's starting to get scared that they will get their ass kicked and they could lose the House and the Senate. And he's doing what he did in 2020. I was in the room where that happened. When he challenged that, we had January 6th. Not only were our lives imperiled, and without the courage of the Capitol Police, I'm not sure I'd be here. I'm not sure our fragile little experiment in democracy would be. So, what would he do next time? That's why Americans should be very concerned with what the president did last night, even if it sounds like what it was silly stuff.
China has actually responded to some of Trump's claims from last night, denying any interference in U.S. elections. What the president accused China of is gaining access to 220 million U.S. voter files. He called the breach of it an, quote, unprecedented election security nightmare. You're, as I mentioned, on the Intelligence Committee. Is there something to this 220 million?
Well, I think it's important for every American to know that most states sell the information of registered voters. You can just go online and buy the stuff and you can get this information. Is it concerning that another country would want this? Of course. But there's no grand conspiracy or breach that's taking place. This is a decentralized system. It's not like they're going to latch on. We know that other countries have tried to influence our elections, although the president denied that because in 2016, the entire intelligence community agreed with a high level of certainty that the Russians tried to online efforts and propaganda help him win that election and hurt Hilary Clinton. So, look, foreign influence is a concern, but I know of no evidence of what the president talked about last night, and no evidence at all that they have successfully attempted to impact tabulation of voting. I was on the committee that funded election grants, so we always want to make sure our state's systems are safe. But if the president was so concerned, he wouldn't have gutted the two programs that affect this and protect the federal government and the states. The Malign Influence Center is just one example.
Yeah, there is a distinction between interfering in vote counts and vote tabulations and influence campaigns that, are, while unsavory, not necessarily illegal. I do want to ask you, because you have been one of the members quite outspoken on cracking down on insider trading among prediction markets. Kalshi is now saying that a White House teleprompter operator had been using his position to win around $100,000 betting on what the president would say in his speeches. This came up yesterday because people were asking who's going to run teleprompter for the president last night. What do you make of this?
Yeah, this is a scary time for such things. We saw that with the military effort in Venezuela, where someone was charged with this, someone who had this inside influence. If you can bet on anything, there are going to be those that exploit it, and there are going to be those that have inside information. At the local, state, and national level, this has to be outlawed. It has to be investigated and prosecuted to the highest levels possible. Who knew that if you could bet on any outcome, including election results, that bad things will happen? We need to be more active on this.
Mike, quick question though is, who needs to be more active? Like, where does the responsibility lie, right? Like, is it that, just as this specific example, the White House needs to be more on, I don't know, there needs to be more rules from the White House to employees or watching more closely what people are doing, which seems pretty impossible since you can vote on anything? Or is it the other way around? There needs to just be tougher laws around it, which would then land on you guys. Like, who has the responsibility here?
Look, I think it's going to take both. I think you're starting to see city councils, county governments, state governments pass these things.
Yeah.
The problem, to your point, is how do you monitor the actions of thousands and thousands of people who have inside information, who can bet on all these things? I don't know that you're ever going to be able to outlaw all of those measures, but at least we have to take a look at outlawing some things where it's impossible to monitor all of them. And the fact that these people know it could influence the outcome, that's scary for any democracy.
It is quite a moment that we find ourselves in so many regards. Congressman, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time. Fred.